Welcome to Tuesday with Terry, the podcast for getting your mind, business, and life in shape. Hosted by Terry Blachek, one of the original area developers for Orange Theory Fitness, who helped launch the brand from the very beginning. He'll use his years of experience to help you shape up your mind, build strong relationships with your teams, revamp your business processes, and set down the path towards success in all aspects of your life.
Good afternoon. Good morning. My name is Terry. I'm glad to be back with you today on Tuesday with Terry, talking to you live from Austin, Texas, where the sun is hot, the barbecue is fantastic, and all the drinks are free over here. Come on over and visit. We'd love to have you be our guest. Well, be our guest. What an amazing topic, because today what I really want to talk to you about is I want to share with you a little bit about service and how we can do better in business of taking care of our customers. I'm going to share with you a story. It's an old story, and I wish I knew where I heard this from. It's an old story. I heard this probably 20, 25 years ago, and I won't be able to give credit to the guy that I heard this from, but this is a great story. It's called the Lobster Bisque story, and it's a story about a gentleman who traveled around a lot, and he stayed in big, beautiful, fancy hotels, and when he would stay at those hotels, he would have a seminar in that hotel, in one of the hotel rooms, and sure enough, what happened was he checked into the hotel, he goes up to his room, and this hotel was famous for the world, they called it the world famous lobster bisque. They were really famous in their fine dining restaurant for their lobster bisque. And it was unbelievable. I mean, everybody came from miles around to try this lobster bisque. Well, it was just a few hours before his seminar, and he decided he would go down and maybe try this lobster bisque. And so he went down there and he went to the restaurant. And of course, as he walked in, sure enough, there was a person that was dressed, it looked like in a black tuxedo, all dressed up. And it was the host, or in this case, it was the hostess that was all dressed up. And she smiled and she says, can I help you out? May I help you out? And he said, yes. He said, I'm staying in the hotel. And he said, as a matter of fact, I'm having a seminar and I have a lot of people coming in, and I am going to be having a meeting here. And I'm sure some of my folks are going to want to come in and, visit some of your establishments. But I want to come in and just try the lobster bisque before my seminar. And she smiled and she looked at him and she says, sir, she says, well, thank you so much for coming. But she says, I apologize. She said, unfortunately, unless you're sitting down, we get so busy in here. Unless you're sitting down having the full menu, we won't be able to service you. And we won't be able to provide a bowl of our world-famous lobster bisque. We just don't do that. He said, well, maybe you don't understand. He said, I'm a guest in the hotel. He said, I'm actually staying here. I'm having a seminar here. He said, if you can't help me, maybe there's someone else that could. And so she leaves, and pretty soon comes out another person dressed again in the tuxedo. And this was the maitre d'. And the maitre d' said, how can I help you out? And he went through the whole spiel. I'm staying here. I'm having a seminar here. I want a bowl of your world-famous lobster bisque. He said, sir, he says, I apologize. Unfortunately, he says, that's our policy. I don't know about you. Have you ever heard that before, where somebody says, we can't service because it's our policy? Well, that got him a little bit uptight, and he said, well, maybe I should speak to somebody else. He said, I guess I need to speak to the manager or someone in charge. And so sure enough, that maitre d' walked away, and pretty soon another person came out, and they were all dressed up very nice. It was a fine dining restaurant, dressed up very nice. And sure enough, the person introduced and said, I'm the manager of the hotel. He said, how can I help you out? And he said, well, I'm a guest at the hotel. I'm having a meeting. I'm bringing more people in here. And he goes through this whole process. And all I wanted to do was to have a bowl of your world-famous lobster bisque. The manager looked at him and he said, sir, he said, I apologize. He said, follow me. He walked him into the restaurant. He sat him down at the table. He looked at one of his waiters. He said, get this gentleman a bowl of lobster bisque. And he said, today, sir, the bowl of lobster bisque is on the house. Let me ask you a question. As you hear that story, how many of you want to go and have a bowl of lobster bisque at that restaurant right now? It's a little hard to get in there to get a bowl of lobster bisque, right? Just across the street was a not-so-big hotel and a not-so-famous restaurant and a not-so-famous lobster bisque. As a matter of fact, it was a family business. It was a family restaurant. And another gentleman had taken his family out to that restaurant. And, every Sunday night they would go out for dinner as a family, and they went into the restaurant and they all got to sit around there, and everything was casual, and everybody sits down, and a waitress comes over and she starts taking the order and takes it from mom and takes it from the sister and the brother and the dad. And finally it gets down to the little girl to take her order. And she couldn't read the menu, and all she said to the waitress was, I'd really like some ice cream. And the waitress looked at her and said, you know what? We don't have that on the menu. But if you just wait here a little bit, I'll figure it out and I'll go make you some. She runs in the back, runs across the street to a 7-Eleven, grabs a half gallon of butter pecan ice cream, brings it back, scoops it up, puts it in a little bowl, and brings it out for the little girl to enjoy a scoop of butter pecan ice cream. How many of you want to eat at that restaurant right now? So when I ride on airplanes and they pull the tray table down and there's crumbs or there's a coffee stain or there's a juice stain or something on there, what happens is I try to get the flight attendant's attention. I don't get to talk to the president of, United Airlines. I don't get to talk to the senior VP of American Airlines. I talk specifically to the flight attendant. And when I talk to that flight attendant, she can either help me or she can make something up and say, this is our policy and this is how we're going to do things. But at that moment in time, she is American Airlines or she is United Airlines to me. Just like that story, at that moment in time, that hostess, the maitre d', the manager, the waitress is representing that business at that particular moment in time. The reason I tell you that is whether it's you or whether it's somebody else working for you, you are the brand. Are you dressed and pressed and representing the brand the same way as the owner of that brand would represent themselves and would speak to a customer or speak to a prospect or speak to a patron? So there's something out there, this goes back a little bit, but there's something out there called moments of truth. You see, anytime anybody comes in contact with your business, they have this moment of truth. They have a moment of neutrality. A moment of neutrality is when they expect something to happen, and in fact, it happens. I'll give you an example. In my business, we're supposed to open the doors at 4:30 in the morning because our first class is at 5 a.m. Members expect that work out at 5 a.m. They can walk in there at 4:30, 4:45. When they grab a hold of the door and they pull it, the door actually opens and the lights are on and somebody's in there to take care of them. That doesn't exceed an expectation. That is meeting that expectation. We call that a moment of neutrality. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, if they go up 4:30 in the morning, if they go up and they pull on that door handle and that door handle doesn't open and the studio is locked and the lights aren't on and the staff isn't there and the coaches aren't there, that turns into a moment of misery. We haven't met that expectation and it's a moment of misery. And so how do we treat people so that we can get out of neutral moments, get out of miserable moments, and create moments of magic? Moments of magic are when we exceed a customer, a prospect's expectation. When they walk in and we can greet them by name. The best sounding word in the universe is your name. You love to hear your name. I love to hear my name. And when someone can remember my name, I'm impressed. When somebody makes me feel important, because what happens is when people walk into your business, they may not say this out loud, but underneath and inside, they're going to be saying, does anybody know I'm here? Does anybody know my name? And does anybody care about me? When you can answer those three questions and your staff or your employees or your managers can answer those three questions and make people feel like they're welcome, make people feel like they remembered them, make them feel like they care about them and they know about them personally, that will change everything about your level of service and about what people say and report on Yelp and Google reviews and all those pieces. You know that reputation is one of the most important and hardest things to build, but it's one of the easiest things to lose. I'll share, I had an opportunity to go to Disney World and spend a lot of time in my early parts of my career at Disney. And I went through their Disney University for People Management. I went through their Disney University for Creativity and Innovation and Customer and Guest Relations. And I just share this story because they had done a survey. You know, Disney is one of the greatest places on earth, that we look at that as a model of customer service and cleanliness. And that's what people say. But they did a survey for the folks that came to Disney. And, people travel from all over the world. It's the number one a place to visit for vacation in the world, right? So people come all over. They save up all year long to be able to go to Disney World and to take their family to Disney World. It costs, I think, $2,500 to $4,500 if you're going to spend 4 or 5 days at Disney World, between the travel, between the park tickets, between the hotel, between the food. It starts adding up. And so what they said is, we need to survey our members and find out how they really like Disney. And so what they did is they took a group of people and they said, they want you to rate these different experiences in our business on a scale of 1 to 10. And so, the first thing they did is everybody goes in and they all go running towards the attractions, right? And they find themselves standing in line in the middle of summer in the heat and the boiling heat. And they're standing in line for 45 minutes or an hour. And they said, how did you like that experience? And the folks at Disney rated that as a 1. They really didn't like that experience. But after they waited in line so long to see Mickey Mouse, man, and then the kids get to see Mickey and we get a picture with Miss, it's so exciting. And the kids have the little autograph book and Mickey signs it and Minnie signs it. And they come out and finally they get to see it and they come out and they said, how was that experience? And man, that was a 9. That was a 9. I mean, it was great, man. I just love seeing my daughter's eyes light up. I can remember when Taylor was 7 years old, and first time in the world I took her to Disney World, and she got the autograph book, and I still have photographs and memories of that. And it was one of the best times with my daughter. And they got a little hungry, then we get a little hungry and we get out of seeing Mickey Mouse and we say, well, let's get something to eat. And we go over and they got these cool pretzels, right? And they're shaped in the form of Mickey Mouse. And we buy the pretzel and it's $19.95 for a pretzel. And we go, oh, ouch. This is a little expensive, right? And so when people rated that as a 2, that's a little, I love the pretzel concept. I was only rated a 2. And they said, well, let's hit some rides. And they hit, the Space Mountain, and they hit, if it's little kids, it's the teacups and all the fun things and all the experiences you have on hitting the rides and the water flumes and everything. And that's an 8. That's just an 8. I mean, it's fantastic. And if you've ever been to Disney World, you know that as the sun begins to set and things get a little cooler at night, toward the end of the evening, around 9, 10 o'clock, everybody starts congregating towards the Magic Kingdom, towards the castle, right? Towards Cinderella's castle. And they put on a phenomenal display of their movies, the villains, the heroes, the animated characters, the fireworks. Tinkerbell flies from the top of the castle down, right? Pretty cool stuff. And as people are leaving, they asked them, they said, why don't you just rate your overall experience, not just the fireworks, but just the overall experience of how would you rate the day? And the folks that left Disney rated the day as a 9. And the moral of that story is people remember the highlights more than they remember the lowlights. Did you make them laugh? Did you make them cry? Did you remember their name? Was the place clean? And as they leave, they left on a positive note. Are people leaving your business on a positive note? If it's meaningful and it's positive, when people leave your place of business, they're more willing to return. And isn't that what you really want? You want them to come back over and over and over again. And that's what I want. I want you to come back next Tuesday and hear a little bit more about customer service. My name's Terry. I'm your friend. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye for now.